Welcome back to Take a Stand here on News Radio 570 WWNC and AM 1400 The Peak. We have in the studio with us today all three of the candidates on the Republican side of the race for the 11th Congressional District, John Armour, Spence Campbell, and Carl Mumpower. They're going to be here for the next hour as well, and we will open up the phone lines following the top of the hour news break so that you can have your opportunity to ask questions and offer comments to each of the candidates as we move forward through Take a Stand today. All right, and the last issue I wanted to throw out there, and we don't have a whole lot of time here, so we won't be able to give it the time it deserves, I don't think. But what do you all think, well, I'll just ask point blank. If my bias comes through, so be it. Where is it the federal government's role to determine marriage licenses and contracts?
I'll start on that. It isn't. Marital law, and the Supreme Court has said this, is not a business of the federal government. Now, where it gets dicey is if, as has happened already, and I predicted in writing it was going to happen, a couple, homosexual, gets married in Massachusetts, moves to Nebraska, one of them files for divorce, and they say to a Nebraska court, you have to recognize our homosexual marriage because the full faith and credit clause of the U.S. Constitution says so, and then having recognized it, you have to give us a divorce. So far, most of the courts have done that, have said no dice. But there is a problem there, because each state is supposed to recognize the official acts of the other. So there's not supposed to be any federal role in marriage law. It's supposed to be a state matter. But keeping it a state matter, that's a tough problem.
All right, either of you want to speak?
States' rights issue, we shouldn't be involved, and we should do everything we can to stay out of that involvement. If it comes before us, I feel real strongly in support of traditional marriages. I think that's where children come from. I think that's where families come from, and that's where I'll put my energies.
I don't know that it's that narrow an issue. I think it's a broad issue, and it gets to me. For me, it gets back to the essence of American character and our history through the Constitution. It's a real difficult issue, but the fact of the matter is that the goodness of America comes from the Constitution and, I think, personally, 10 Commandments, so to speak. And if we abandon the principles that made this country great, and the traditional marriage is a place where that starts, then we're just digging a hole that we'll never get out of.
All right, I want to go rapid fire right around the table just to be real specific on a couple of moral issues as far as federal policy goes. Constitutional amendment for the protection of traditional marriage. Carl, yes or no?
Again, that's a big government issue. I don't think the federal government should be into that kind of thing.
All right, but you also said if it came before you that you would vote in favor of traditional marriage between a man and a woman. So would you vote for an amendment, yes or no?
Yes.
Spence?
Yes.
John?
If it came before me, but I agree that it's not a federal issue. It belongs to the states.
All right, would the same be held true for abortion? Is that a states' rights issue or is that a federal issue?
Yes, states' rights.
States' rights?
I believe that very strongly. That's where it should be. Federal government should not be involved in that. We should focus on things that we can do something about, not that one, as is evidenced by the paralysis that's occurred out of the Supreme Court and congressional action. That said, if it comes before us, pro-life will be my position.
John?
Now, I've practiced in the Supreme Court for 33 years, and I said from the beginning that Roe v. Wade is a bad decision because the justices of the Supreme Court wrote something into the Constitution that was not there. And no judges should do that at any time on any issue. And once Roe v. Wade is thrown out, either by the court or by the advance of medical science, that's happening today, the result will be that the issue belongs again to the states, as it did for the first 170 years.
Spence?
Pro-life, but if the opportunity comes along in the Congress to do what John just said, that's what I would be interested in supporting.
All right, and so we've covered marriage, we've covered abortion. Let me throw something out there and tell you that we have 2 minutes total for all three of you to touch on. I'm sure there'll be calls about it, but the situation in Iraq, the war in Iraq. John, your thoughts on it?
I look at the history of Germany and England before World War II. They had a chance to shut down Hitler, and he put it in writing what he was going to do. Churchill warned them. They didn't do it. They wound up with the Second World War. We've been warned. We've seen it in writing. We've got to deal with it.
Spence?
We can't leave until it's finished, and it may take a long time to do that, not only in Iraq but elsewhere throughout the world.
It was a mistake to go. I feel strongly about that. Now that we're there, I think we betray the men and women who have served and died there by going away. I think we betray the potential of hope for assured chaos.
All right, and we are talking with the 3 Republican candidates for the 11th Congressional District on the primary in May. The winner of that contest will go up against Heath Shuler in the general election in November. And in the next hour of the program, we're going to open up for your phone calls, and the numbers are, I'm going to give them to you now, and but the phone lines will not be open until after the news. So don't start dialing yet. They're all closed out right now. But the numbers are 1-800-570-9962. Again, the number 1-800-570-9962. If you're in the Asheville local area, dial 240-9962. And I know by reading blogs and announcement things, we've got a number of people listening from across the state today online.